Welcome to the Opt-In Podcast. I am your host, Melissa Franks, and this is where we go from surviving to thriving in life and business. I am so excited to record this podcast today. It is Friday, and I have been wanting to record this podcast since, I don't even know, maybe Tuesday? I'm not really sure. This has been on my brain and on my heart, and I read a book called Big Magic once upon a time, and in that book she talks about how ideas are just on loan to you. So if you get an idea in your head and you do not act upon it, then you can expect full well that at some point that idea is going to leave you and go to somebody that's going to take action with it, and then you will watch it come into the universe through that other person because you lost it. And I have had a low-grade amount of anxiety that this idea that I had for this podcast was going to leave me and go to another podcaster before I was able to record, because I just could not find the 30 or 40 minutes to get this out of my brain and in front of all of you before today. So I'm very happy that the idea did not, in fact, leave me. And it has actually, the time has given me more things to talk about for all of you. So before we get into what I actually have to say, because, cannot hold back on that, I wanted to give a little bit of context about why we're even talking about sports on a business podcast, because that would probably be the very first question. So if you're new here or you don't follow me on Instagram, you should. Then what you may not know is that my kids are sports kids, specifically baseball and basketball. But we're a sports household, and we live in California, which means there's a sport happening basically every month of the year. And I live for it. I love it. I'm going to mourn the loss of it when they're all old and out of my house and I don't have anything to do. So I'm all in. And my love affair with watching sports didn't start with them. I actually had it before that, but I'm one of those fickle fans. So I'm not a diehard, this team is my team and I'm going to live and die by them. I'm a fan of entertaining competitions. I want to see the best of the best go against each other and have an outcome. I want to see it. So I'm not one of those, I'll sit here and watch a super boring baseball game for 1,000 hours because this is my team and I love them and I want to support them. That's not me. So it may look like I'm a little bit fly by night, to be honest. But really what it is I am fascinated by high performance individuals and athletes, professional athletes. They're all high performance individuals. And I want to know how they got there and how they continue to train and how they perfect themselves and, what coaches they use and how they do mindset stuff versus physical. I just am fascinated. I love to dig in and study sports in general and sports and athletes specifically because there's just a lot to learn there. So with all of that said, and the understanding that I'm a bit fly by night from the outside on what I commit to in viewership, I'm somebody that would be aware that it was March and be aware that there were brackets going on and maybe catch some games inside of March Madness because it happened to be on or available. But I wasn't seeking it out. I did not own squares on a board. I did not have my own bracket set up. I did not do any of those things. And so over the years, I knew what it was and I would watch it. And I really actually love college basketball. I love college sports in general. They're just more scrappy and real and raw than the professionals. Anyway, so all of you, I have begun to have more awareness around women's sports and specifically women's basketball, college basketball. And as I said, I really enjoy watching contests. So last year, my attention was piqued when I started to see all of the media about Angel Reese and the commentary around her and Caitlyn Clark and the hero stories with her. And I've been just kind of on the sidelines watching what happens. And then because my kids are now of the age, anytime a new contract is signed, anytime there's a draft, anytime there's speculation about who's going to come pro, etc., we have a ton of conversations around all of those things. And so this is just kind of something that has been going on in my house. It's something that that is just in my life day to day. And we were having a conversation, my kids and I, leading up to the WNBA draft around who was announcing that they were making a decision to go pro, who we'd see drafted, what order they were in, etc. But honestly, we don't know anything about the teams because we don't watch the WNBA, or we haven't in the past, and we definitely have never gone to a game. And so as the draft started to come up, all of us were paying a little bit more attention, specifically because we had just come out of March Madness. We had just watched a lot of women's college basketball, a lot, and we're super invested. We just were. So when I saw all of the noise, that's what I'm going to call it, come out about Caitlyn Clark and her deal, my head just started to spin. Like, I had so many things that I wanted to talk about with you. There were so many things that I wanted to say out loud. I went on my stories on Instagram and talked about a few things. I wrote a draft article for a newsletter. Like, I have so many freaking thoughts about this, and my brain just keeps coming back to business. And so as I kind of open the conversation with all of you, I want to kind of set the stage, because I think that there is just a misunderstanding of how the business of the draft actually works. And I'm talking for like first round draft picks, and I'm talking specifically for like the very first of the first round. Okay. So when Caitlyn Clark declared that she was going to go pro, that this is where she was going, that this is the next step for her, the world, and quite frankly, all of the WNBA team ownership and all of their managers and etc. decided that Caitlyn was going as the first of the first round. It was well understood that that was what was happening. I didn't see it contested anywhere. And so what that meant is that Caitlyn also knew where she was going, because we knew who had first pick. We knew that Indiana had it. That was not a surprise to anybody. She also knew, and this is where your head might explode, how much she was going to get paid. She didn't walk into that room and go through all of this stuff and then go into the back with a calculator and go, holy shit, I'm getting screwed. I just want to be really, really clear, and I'm going to explain to you why in a second. But she knew long before she put on the Prada outfit, before she had her glam done, before she walked into that convention center or wherever she was, and before she walked up on stage and held up that jersey, she knew who was going to pick her and how much money she was going to make. And she readily decided to walk into the room anyway. And here is why. Here's why she knew, and here's why she is not coming out and saying anything about her paycheck. All professional sports leagues have their own unions. They are players' unions, and they are there to protect the interests of the players. These unions are like every other union, whether they're a teachers' union or they're a commercial drivers' union, like the UPS drivers of the world, or Starbucks workers that have unionized, or the Walmart workers that have unionized. They're all literally the same. And the whole point of a union is so that collectively, all together, the people that are a part of that union are treated equitably. And what that means is that there are clear requirements for how pay is established. There are clear requirements around how pay increases happen. There are clear requirements around benefits and 401ks and time off, if that's a thing. There are clear requirements around work days and how many days you have to have off between a shift. There are clear requirements about work environment, and you name it, the union, on behalf of all of the people inside of it, work together with the employer, in this case the WNBA, and they negotiate and agree on the terms and conditions of employment. And so when we all saw that Caitlyn was making under $80K a year in year one, and when we all saw the media that came out after that about how horrific it was and comparing it to Steph Curry and comparing it to this and comparing it to that and like the whatever, what we didn't see was Caitlyn say a word. And that's because she knows that the union, based on all of the information that they have available to them, and the WNBA, based on all of the information that they have available to them, including annual reports that communicate the financials, that they worked together and came up with a pay structure that ensured equity, ensured that it was equitable, ensured that the players were getting paid to the best level that they could get paid based on the business they were working in. And this is where I want to spend a few minutes initially. You cannot compare the WNBA and the NBA. It just is not possible. It is absolutely not an apples to apples comparison. It is not even an apple to orange comparison. It's like an apple to kale comparison. And here's why. The WNBA is in its 28th season right now. The NBA is in its 76th. Yeah, the NBA has been around almost 3 times as long as the WNBA. But that's not the only place where this is divergent. There are only 12 WNBA teams, and there are 40 NBA teams. 40! No, I am not joking. Television license deals were about the same timeline-wise as for both of the leagues, but the difference is that the deal that the NBA has for television is valued at $2.7 billion. Okay? In contrast, each of the teams in the WNBA gets about $1 million a year. Okay, so it's $12 million. 2.7 versus 12 million. And now let's just think about the math for a second. If I am a team and I have $1 million in income, and I need to pay all of my people with that, how far do you really think that's going to go? You could pay 10 people $100,000. Just sit with that for a minute. Versus the 2.7 billion. If you do the exact same math, it is night and day. Now, of course, that $1 million is not the only money that WNBA team makes. There are ticket sales and merch and those sorts of things. But the truth is that the WNBA games happen in significantly smaller facilities. So their ticket sales are lower, and they sell their tickets for less. And why do they sell their tickets for less? It's because there is less demand. Answer me this. When was the last time you were scrolling on the TV and just happened across a WNBA game? Probably not very often. NBA, though, it will be on all of the national networks. You'll be able to see the games, and as we're rolling into the playoffs and finals, it's going to be all over your TV. You're not going to be able to get away from it. The WNBA is not the same. While they have deals, they are on secondary cable channels that people have to pay more money to get, right? But what I want to point out here is that top line revenue for the WNBA last year was $200 million. $200 million. And in the same time period for the NBA, it was $15 billion with a B. These are just not the same businesses. They're absolutely not the same. It is not possible for Caitlyn Clark to make $55 million a year when the WNBA, the entire league itself, has revenue totaling $200 million. So we need to just stop it and knock it off. And we can be outraged. We can say that like there's discrimination and unequal advantages, and we haven't, as a society, done enough to promote women's sports. And all of that is absolutely true. All of that is completely true. You see it in the professional soccer world. You see it everywhere. Women's sports are having a moment. Women's sports are finally getting their due. Women's sports are finally getting their attention. We're finally starting to see the teeter-totter go from like this to something like this. We're not here, guys. Not here at all, nor are we here, right? But we're going from something like this to maybe something like this. And if you are not watching this on YouTube, I'm so sorry. But the gap between where men's professional sports are and where women's professional sports are from a viewership perspective, an awareness perspective, a revenue perspective, all of those things is starting to narrow. And it's narrowing slowly, but it's starting to narrow. Now, the thing is that public opinion, the cycle of social media and news happens on an international platform. And so the visibility of high-profile female athletes, whether it's Brittany Griner, who got stuck in Russia, or it's Caitlyn Clark and Angel Reese, they're social media moments. They're social media darlings right now. They're getting a lot of attention, but the question is, how long will it last? We all know that attention is fickle on social media. We all know the algorithm takes things over. We also know that it's major news outlets and celebrities and all of these people that are making so much noise right now about what's happening in the WNBA. And I want to talk to you about this from a business perspective, because I actually see this as a massive opportunity for the WNBA and for women's sports in general. And that opportunity is them to educate the world about business. Because as much as we want to say this is just about the sports and we want to watch them perform and we want to be entertained and we want to do all those things, which is the business that they're in the business of entertainment at the end of the day, right? That's what sells tickets. That's what sells merch. That's what has rating fans. That's how the whole world goes around. That's how ad spend works, etc. So they're in the business of entertainment. But they're in a business. And so if I start looking at just the numbers we were talking about, the NBA has 40 teams, which means that they are in 40 markets. And the WNBA has 12. It means they could 4x their business by having an equivalency of teams, give or take a few, right? Or let's say they only did half and they went from 12 to 24. Well, they could still double the number of games that they play a year. The WNBA plays less games than the NBA. And part of that is because there's less teams, right? That's just the way that it goes. If they increase the number of teams that there are in the markets that they serve, and they increase the number of games that they play, or they make the season longer, or they do whatever, they start printing money because there's more ticket sales and there's more ad spend and there's more merch, right? So what I see actually is that the WNBA is a ground floor opportunity. Now, generally speaking, we talk about ground floor opportunities. What we're talking about is like brand new baby businesses. So like just happened, predicted to have exponential growth. Get in now, invest now, take action now, because it's going to grow astronomically and you don't want to miss the bus, right? That's what we're talking about. But I actually think that that's where we are with the WNBA. It's in its 28th season. That is absolutely correct. So it's in its first third of life in comparison to the NBA. But it's just now getting attention. It's just now figuring out what model works. If you think about it, early stage businesses, whatever they are, they can be a technology startup, they could be a brick and mortar store, they can be some sort of online business, they can be whatever. The first period of time, be it 6 months, be it a year, be it 5 years, however long, is where you're just testing stuff. Is this gonna work? Are people gonna care? Are they gonna buy from us? Is the pricing right? Is this the way we should do this? The WNBA, for example, they're like, are we playing at the right time of year? Are we in cities where people care and want to attend? Are ticket prices that people want to buy? How many tickets can we sell? What sort of merch do our fans want versus the merch that we think that they want, right? On and on and on and on. They have been testing for the first 28 seasons. And now they know that catching attention and keeping people curious and delivering results and tying the WNBA to the dynamics that happen in college sports is going to get them increased visibility. Now they know supporting their players to get NIL deals where there is mass media with their face all over, they're plastered on buildings and all those things, is going to create demand for WNBA events and games and merch. Now they know what could potentially work. Now they know what to double down on. Now they know what their model is. And interestingly, while they initially patterned themselves after the NBA, they're now understanding that their audience is different. And so when I say that the WNBA is a ground floor opportunity, it's because of all of this information. 200 million versus 15 billion. There's so much addressable market. There's so much. My head almost wants to explode with how much addressable market there is. And you can do it a variety of ways. You expand to more cities, or you add more games, or you do both, right? Or you make your season longer, or you make it different. I mean, what would happen if the WNBA ran at a different time of year than the NBA? What if the WNBA competed with NFL versus the NBA, right? Like, who knows? Sky's the limit. But here's the thing, is that it is the early days because they're so infantile in their business model. Just to give you an idea, because I feel like sometimes we say these numbers and they don't mean anything. And I talk about numbers, and I am aware of this, like I'm talking to you about 50 cents. I was the chief operating officer of a business that made over $200 million a year. I'm not joking. Me, the person you're listening to on this podcast right now, we grew that business. When I had entered, it was at $50 million. And by the time I left, it was over 200. Okay. And that happened in like 3 years. So you know me, right? We know each other. I ran a business the size of the WNBA. Now, granted, different business. It was technology. It was not entertainment. But I just want to put that in your head. We are not talking about a business that is being run by Elon Musk. Okay? NBA, Elon Musk, right? Those correlations could probably stand. We're not talking about that. We are talking about a business that was run by your friendly COO right here. Now, I'm not saying that I had the experience to run the WNBA, so that's not what I'm saying. But what I want to talk to you about is that in terms of understanding the size of the businesses and how completely different, like two different galaxies these businesses are in, the NBA is playing in the land of the biggest things, the Coca-Colas, the Procter and Gamble's, the Berkshire Hathaway, I could go on and on and on, right? Walmart, Target, etc. That's where the NBA is living. The WNBA, very seriously, it's your local hardware store that has 5 locations. That's what we're talking about. So when I say that there's a ground floor opportunity, what I am saying is that if the WNBA aspires to be Home Depot, and currently the WNBA is 5 local hardware stores, holy moly, is there room to grow. And what that means specifically is that if Caitlyn Clark is making, I don't know, $76,000 a year because she's an employee of one of those 5 local home improvement stores, if she took her equivalent position and she moved it to Home Depot, she'd be making more money. Why? Because Home Depot has deeper pockets. Home Depot has the ability to pay more, right? There's depth there that they can dig into. There's profit and revenue that they can dig into. Now, this analogy is garbage because it is. But I think you get my point. We can't demand that an employee of a local home improvement store be making the same amount of money as an employee of a multinational or global chain. And that's what's happening here in the NBA. I guarantee you that the CEO of the WNBA doesn't even make a fraction of the money that the CEO of the NBA makes. And that is purely because the businesses are two different beasts. They're two different sizes. They have two different scopes of control. They're just completely different. So I want us to stop talking about Caitlyn Clark needing to make $55 million a year because she's equivalent to Steph Curry. I do not care if their skill level is the same. She is making trade-offs, and there's a variety of reasons that she could be making them. Now, in this case, she can't be in the NBA. She's excluded from that for a variety of reasons. But what I want to point out is that you as the small business owner, or you as the employee of a small business, need to evaluate what you're comparing yourself against. Because I recently had a conversation with a business owner, and they were saying that they couldn't get top talent because they can't pay for them. They can't afford top talent. And that thinking is really short-sighted, because top talent inside of very large corporations is, I'm trying to find the right words, is really put into a box. There is a lot of governance and processes and rules and requirements, and things move slowly. And no matter how high up the food chain they are and how much perceived authority and autonomy they don't really have any, because all decisions are made by a committee, or all decisions are ultimately made by the board, or there's a lot of politics that go on with that. Whereas if that same top employee came to a small business, they would have the authority and autonomy. They would have the ability to learn and stretch and grow and experiment. They'd have flexibility potentially to not work on Fridays, or to work early and leave early, or to adjust their work life around their personal life, right? There are trade-offs for each one, but they cannot be compared. And so sometimes all we do is look at money as the indicator or equivalency of talent. So my worth is defined by my paycheck, and I've got to tell you right now that that's just not true. If we look at Caitlyn Clark, she's just as skilled as any of those other people that she's being compared to. Hands down, she has the skills. And also, she has an opportunity that they don't have, because she is the big fish in the small pond. When she decides to exploit those NIL deals, she's going to go from having $3 million to $100 million. Whereas, number one rookie draft pick for the NBA, they've got to compete. They've got to compete with Steph and LeBron and Clay, right? They are a small fish in a big pond. So as much as we don't like that the math doesn't math, in this case, the math does math. We're just doing the wrong math. So I could literally talk about this for hours, but the closing thing that I want to say is that the one thing that Caitlyn Clark knows, which is why she's not coming up and bad-mouthing the WNBA, is that her earning potential is infinite. She knows that this is a ground floor opportunity. She knows that if she continues to outperform and deliver results and be philanthropic and take advantage of NIL opportunities, she's going to continue to increase the profile of the NBA, the WNBA. And the more that she increases the profile of the WNBA and Angel Reese and the other players that we are knowing and loving, the more money the WNBA makes. And the more money the WNBA makes, the more these players are paid. See, Caitlyn's in this for the long game. She's not concerned that as a college graduate in her first year out of college and her first job, yes, out of college, she's making less than $80K, because she knows this is just the beginning. And if she works hard and delivers results and does what she's coached to do by her agent and her PR team and her actual basketball coach, she's going to be just fine. Not only is she going to be just fine, but she's going to lift up all of the other people around her. You see, the thing about a ground floor opportunity is you can't predict when the exponential growth happens. All you know is that it's time to watch and wait because it's coming. So I'm going to get off my soapbox about Caitlyn and the WNBA. I hope that you found this little talk today about this and how it's applicable to the business world and how you can look at this and other circumstances, through the business world lens, because I think that it's really important for all of us businessy people to talk about it. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up emotionally in what is happening to the person that we don't actually look at what's happening with the business and what it's actually telling us about what's going on in the current state of affairs. So, I'm excited to watch this. I'm excited to see what goes on with the WNBA, whether they're able to capitalize on all of this momentum and attention and actually really convert that to top line growth. I'm excited to see these players play because they're super fun to watch. More though, I'm really interested to see what these business leaders do inside of the league, and what opportunities come from it. This is one to watch, I'm telling you. And if you can put your businessy hat on instead of your human hat, and you can watch the moves they're making, the deals that they're making, we can watch what happens with television and city expansion and all that stuff. I predict that this is going to explode soon, like in the next couple of years soon, not in 10 years. So if you agree with me, let me know. If you do not agree with me, also let me know. You can DM me on Instagram. I would love to hear what you have to say about this entire topic. I know people are really passionate about it. I get it. It is commentary around your salary and what you're getting paid and all those things. And I know there are 1,000 people out there that are saying like, she's so much more talented than I am and I'm making more money than her. How is that possible? It's possible because she's working in a small business. And she's not even a college graduate yet, and that's how she's getting paid. So if you appreciated this conversation, or if it incensed you so much you want to share it with somebody else, please do so. This podcast is powered by you liking and sharing and rating and reviewing, so I appreciate all of your feedback. And until next time, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you.